Being falsely imprisoned for a crime that I didn't commit is one of my greatest fears in life. Being led down a dark, dank corridor past people who have cheated, stolen, and murdered their way through life, to a cramped cell, forced to live out the rest of my days in a hell that I did nothing to earn. Prisons, by definition, are not a happy place. The years of neglect and violence that haunt the meandering walkways and cramped chambers present a palpable sensation of fear and dread. And that is where our video this week takes us. To a maximum security prison in a bustling Chicago suburb where some of the most vile people on the planet were left to die. But now, the prisoners have rioted. The guards have fled. A darkness has seized control of this maximum security prison, and the warden has opened the gates for visitors. You will now be forced to find your way through 23 maximum security cells and come eye to eye with over 100 criminals that were all too evil to die. This is Statesville Haunted Prison. No one escapes. I'm Cameron West, and you are watching HauntSeason. Statesville Haunted Prison was born out of the mind of Paul Siegel, a third-generation farmer from Crest Hill, Illinois. Siegel grew up on a farm that neighbored up to the actual Stateville Correctional Center, a sprawling prison complex that Siegel remembered as being damn scary to live next to. And it was this actual prison that gave Siegel his light bulb moment. Opened in 1925, Stateville is located 2 miles north of Joliet, Illinois, on a site of over 2,200 acres, of which 64 acres are surrounded by a 33-foot concrete perimeter wall with 10 wall towers. Stateville is a Level 1 Supermax facility and was originally built to accommodate 1,506 inmates. Parts of the prison were designed according to the panopticon concept proposed by the British philosopher and prison reformer Jeremy Bentham. Stateville's F-house cell house, commonly known as a roundhouse, has a panopticon layout which features an armed tower in the center of an open area surrounded by several tiers of cells. The Stateville Correctional Center was also one of only 3 sites in which executions were carried out by electrocution in Illinois. Between 1928 and 1962, the electric chair was used 13 times at Stateville, including the state's first electrocutions on December 15, 1928, of 3 convicted murderers. When the method was changed to lethal injection, Stateville was the only site where executions were to remain carried out, up until 1998. Over the years, Stateville has housed several prolific prisoners, including Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb, of the infamous Leopold and Loeb case, which saw these 2 wealthy students kidnap and murder 14-year-old Bobby Franks in Chicago before being sentenced to life plus another 99 years in prison. Richard Speck, who in 1967 was convicted of systematically torturing, raping, and murdering 8 female nurses in South Chicago before being sentenced to death. And its most infamous prisoner, John Wayne Gacy, a serial killer and rapist convicted of the murders and rape of 33 boys and young men in 1980, who, after spending 14 years on death row, was transferred from the Maynard Correctional Center to Stateville Correctional Center for execution via lethal injection on May 9, 1994. And with inmates like these, it's not hard to see why Siegel thought a haunted house in the area would be a pretty fantastic idea. But before Siegel could run, he had to walk first. Recalling memories of living near the Joliet area prison, Spiegel could see guards on horseback riding around its perimeter to make sure that no prisoners escaped the maximum security facility. And while this terrified him, it also gave him a sinister idea. On his farm in 1995, Siegel opened his first haunt, a haunted hayride with several scary yet standard scenes featuring things like witches chanting around a cauldron and a captive prisoner who rode along on the hayride. But operating without the proper permit forced Spiegel to shut the ride down and rethink his idea. The next year, in 1996, Siegel, realizing he had an abandoned building on his land and seeing that people still wanted to be scared, decided to move his haunt into that building, and StateSville Haunted Prison was born. Noting that this prison added an S to the name because, as Siegel regaled, people would often visit his farm asking how to get to Statesville Prison, a mispronunciation of the actual name. Statesville Haunted Prison started out as a regular haunted house with a run-of-the-mill scary theme. There was a dentist scene showing a patient getting teeth drilled with no anesthesia, an undertaker, and clown suits, a morbid callback to the neighboring prison's star inmate. But in 1998, Siegel met John LaFlamboy. After LaFlamboy wrote his thesis on theater companies and came looking for work at the haunted prison. The two hit it off instantly, and after admitting that he wanted to change the design and theme of the haunted house, Siegel took on LaFlamboy as a partner to help transition the haunt into a unified story. LaFlamboy owned a small company called Zombie Army Productions that would see about 12 actors hired into the haunt. Trusting in his new partner, Siegel let LaFlamboy in and execute according to his vision. His team of actors and crew tore everything down and started from scratch, building a haunted house with one clear concept: no one escapes. Whereas most haunted houses at the time were collages of random scenes, such as a clown room or a mummy room, LaFlamboy wanted Statesville to tell one cohesive, immersive story that made visitors feel like they were checking into an actual prison that they would not be able to get out of. The show starts with a bang, as upon arriving on site, visitors are treated as if they are new prisoners, ushered into queue lines by prison guards wielding immense guns that shoot flames 50 feet in the air. Entering the haunt is similar to entering the real prison next door. The opening scene of the 1-hour haunted house tour features a warden who greets visitors and informs them that they are no longer in control of their lives. After the doors shut behind them, the visitors are then instructed to make their way through the prison, encountering numerous cells filled with unique and disturbing prisoners hell-bent on making sure the fresh meat has a permanent home in this new hellscape. On their journey, visitors encounter all manner of inmates, from prisoners who are being infested by live cockroaches, to those who are being eaten alive by rats, to yet another whose favorite pastime is mixing water and electricity, to a room where inmates have channeled John Wayne Gacy and are now attacking as clowns. And what started with only a few rooms and a handful of actors has now grown to 23 rooms and over 170 prisoners running amok in the haunt. And should you actually face your fears and make it out of the prison, a new haunt awaits. Here, after you find your way out of the mighty walls of Statesville, you must descend into the burial pit of City of the Dead. In these caves and mine shafts, you will find the mass graves of Statesville's past inmates. Here, in the depths of this unholy tomb, the gatekeeper has risen from the dead, and the zombies are on the march. You must make it back to the surface before you become a permanent resident. There isn't a worse thought to me than being trapped in a prison with some of the greatest evil that ever lived. But there is something oddly fascinating about walking the same hallways that hundreds of people before me have walked. Sometimes to their eventual freedom, but oftentimes to their inevitable demise. I'm Cameron West. That was HauntSeason, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for future content. And if you have an idea for a haunt we should talk about in the future, please leave your thoughts in the comments below.